Hey guys, just doing a quick video for solutions of the practice financial models test. Please remember that this is like 1.5 times the length of the real thing, but I'd like to show you that if you've been doing the practice, either through the DI and from the timeline exercises or everything that has been asked of you, then if you're fast enough at using TVM Solver, it should actually be possible to do the 1.5 times length test in a double lesson. Okay, so I'll be explaining how to do the thinking as we go, as well as answering the questions, and hopefully you'll see that it's entirely possible if you've been doing what you've been asked to do. So, this one is a superannuation question, so it's exercise 7F. So it wasn't a DI option, you were just asked to do the timeline work. How much does Hadley's employer contribute each fortnight? So his salary is $62,000 a year, but we want fortnight, so divide by 26. 62,000 divided by 26 is 2384.62 to 2 decimal points. But superannuation is only, in this test, 9.5. Please be aware in real life it's 11.5 currently. But in this test it's 9.5. Sorry, I should have highlighted the 62 grand. 9.5%, so 0.095 times by the fortnightly $2384.62. To 2384.62 times 0.095. That's $226.54 to 2DP contributions per fortnight. Question 1 done. Hadley's superannuation fund returns 5.3% per annum compounding fortnightly. How long will it take Hadley to save 500 grand in his fund? 5.3% compounding fortnightly, 500 grand. As soon as it says compounding, we're using TVM Solver. So N, how long? We're going to be solving for N. The interest rate of the super fund is 5.3 PV. So the super fund is where you're putting the money regularly in until you retire. You're saving up for a certain amount. So PV, it doesn't say that he's starting off with anything in his super fund, so 0. PMT is what we just worked out in A because he's contributing $226.54 per fortnight. And it doesn't say anything that Hadley's doing anything extra, so we're just doing what his employer is meant to be doing, the 9.5%. FV, the question is saying that we want him to save up to 500,000. PY, it's fortnightly. CY, we've been told it compounds fortnightly, so 26. So apps, finance, TVM Solver, 5.3, 0, negative 226.54, 500 grand, 26, enter, both get changed to 26. Alpha solve, that tells me 837.07 to 2DP. So therefore 837.07 fortnights. The question doesn't say what units it would like it to be in, it just says how long, so that should be accepted. But it's easier for people to think in years, so you go 837.07 divided by 26 equals, second quit, 837.07 divided by 26, 32.20 years to 2DP. Okay, that's how long. That one done. Find the total amount in the fund when Hadley retires at age 60. So this is important, 60. He's currently 24. 60 take 24. So we're going to say that he's leaving the account going for 36 years. So N is going to be 36 times by 26. How many fortnights will that be? 36 times 26. 936 fortnights. His interest rate for the super account was 5.3. He started off at nothing. He's putting in $226.54. We want to know what ends up. So FV is what we're solving for. PY is 26. CY is 26. Apps, finance, TVM solver, 936. Alpha, enter. That tells us he's going to end up with 636,404.39 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, $636,404.39 in fund at age of 60. That is question 1. A, B1, B2, done. Yasmin retires at age 60 with 500,000 in her super account. 500,000 in the super fund. So another exercise 7F superannuation question. She rolls the money into an allocated pension earning. Okay, so instead of this question, which is mostly about what Hadley is doing while he's working and getting up to retiring, he's putting money into the super account. Yasmin has finished all that. She's going to retire and she's going to live off this for the rest of her life. So compound interest. Interest is compounding monthly. How long will it last if she withdraws $6,000 a month? So N is what we're solving for. The interest rate of her pension fund is 5.25%. She started off with 500 grand in there, so negative 500,000 because it's in the bank. PMT, we've been told she's withdrawing 6 grand, so it's positive 6,000 because it's coming from the bank to her. And it's kind of more, but it says how long is it going to last? So when we say last, we mean she's going to use it all up till she basically dies. So there's not going to be any money in there. FV is 0. PY is monthly, so 12. CY is 12. Which side was my calculator? It was on the, oh, there. 5.25. Negative 500,000. 6,000. 0. 12 and 12. Alpha, enter. That tells me 103.88 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, will last 103.88 months. Therefore, 103.88 divided by 12. 103.88 divided by 12. 8.66. 8.66 years to, not 2, just bracket 2DP. If Yasmin wants her money to last for 25 years, well, so currently it's 8.66, she's going to have to be a bit scant. How much can she afford to withdraw per month? So this is going to look pretty for Yasmin. N, we want it to last 25 years. So 25 times 12, which is going to be 300. She wants to live a bit longer, I'm guessing. 5.25. There is 500,000 in the account, so negative 500,000 BMT. We want to see what she can actually withdraw. I'm not going to have any money in there when I die. PY is 12. CY is 12. Apps, finance, TVM. We want it to last 300. So 6,000 is not going to work. Alpha, enter. PMT is 2996.24 to 2DP. Therefore, 2996.24 per month to last 25 years. She's going to have to spend less than half of that $6,000 per month if she wants it to last that long. She's 60, so yeah, now she's decided she wants to live to 85. That's that question done. Question 3. This is a 7C.1 question. So you want to practice this on the DI. You would have just done timeline work. Zach wants to save $30,000 for a home loan deposit within 5 years. He deposits quarterly, 3.1% per annum, interest compounded quarterly. How much does he need to deposit each quarter? So N is going to be 5 years times by quarterly, so 20. The interest rate is 3.1. PV, it doesn't say that he started off with anything. PMT is what we're looking for because it says how much does he need to deposit. FV, he wants to have $30,000 in there at the end, so positive 30,000. PY, he's paying quarterly, so 4, compounding quarterly also. 20, 3.1, nothing, 30,000, 4 and 4, alpha, enter. Negative 1392.55 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, deposit $1392.55 per quarter. How much interest will Zach earn from the investment? So you need to remember interest on an investment formula way back when is FV, what it grew to, minus anything that you put in. So any PV plus any regular payments, which is PMT times N. If you don't have that formula, I need to question what you were doing in the lesson, but now in this video you can get that formula for the interest on an investment. So it grew to 30,000. Take away, he started off with nothing, but he made 20 payments. Is it he? Yeah, 20 times by $1392.55. Calculator can be trusted to do bed math, so 30,000 take away, bracket 0, plus 20, lots of $1392.55. 2149. Therefore, 2149 interest earned from investment. Okay, that is question 3. Question 3, A1, A2 done. Question 4. It's a home loans question. So you should have practiced this in your DI because I gave you that option. And I also gave you the option to still do the timeline work if you had time. I don't think many of you did that, but that's fine. 275 grand was the loan. He's being charged 4.9% interest compounding monthly for the loan term of 20 years. What are his monthly repayments? So N 20 times 12 is 240. The interest rate was 4.9. PV is going to be positive 275,000 because in a loan the bank gives you that money. So you started off with 275,000. We are solving for PMT. At the end of a loan, I don't want to owe anything. PY is going to be monthly, so 12. And CY is also monthly 12. Apps, finance, TVM solver, 20 times 12, 240, 4.9, 275 grand, owe nothing, 12 and 12, alpha, enter, $1799.72. 2DP, therefore $1799.72 monthly repayments on this loan. Find the outstanding debt after 7 years. So realize that this TVM solver is telling you what's happened after 20 years. So if I want to know what happens at 7 years, I'm just going to change n to 7 times by 12. I don't know my 7 times tables, so I'm just going to enter everything else. PV, 275,000. Everything else is going to be the same. I'm paying off this loan as normal with these repayments that I worked out. But now I'm working out what happens to my debt, so solving for FV, when I've only been paying for 7 years. So it's not going to be 0, because that's not the full loan term. So 7 times by 12, that's 84. Solve for FV, alpha, enter. That tells me negative 207,344.15 to 2 decimal points. Move the calculator. So therefore, 207,344.15. Oh no, I didn't change that. So that's a mistake, my bad. Need to redo this. I've claimed that my repayments are this, rounded to 2 decimal points. I haven't actually done that in the calculator, so let's fix that. Negative 1799.72. Now recalculate FV. There, you can see there's a subtle difference in the answer, but this is the right answer based on my working out. Negative 207,344.26, rounded to 2 decimal points, because I have said in my working out that I'm using the PMT of negative 1799.72. And you would have seen just a few moments ago that that wasn't rounded to 0.72. So now I can claim the answer, therefore 207,344.26 outstanding debt after 7 years. The interest rate increases to 6.5% per annum after 7 years. Find Nathan's new minimum monthly repayments. So N, he's paid 7 years already. The loan term is 20 years, so he needs to pay it off in the remaining time, which is 13 years times by 12. 13 times 12 gives me 156. The interest rate is now 6.5%. That's important. PV, he's already paid off some, and his debt got down to 207,344.26. PMT was the negative 1799.72 that I had before. What do I want to owe the bank at the end of the loan? Nothing. PY is 12. CY is also 12. The payments aren't that. That's what we're working out. We're working out the minimum monthly repayments because the interest rate has increased. So PMT is what I'm solving for. You can see it's live. People, I'm doing exactly what you're doing. So 6.5, his interest rate increased by a crazy amount, 207,344.26. He doesn't want to owe anything. So now his PMT, let's solve for that. Ooh, negative 1972.24 to 2 decimal points for the higher rate. So therefore, $1,972.24 new repayments. Find the total interest charged over the 20 years, assuming the rate stays constant. Okay, so we need to work out how much interest he paid on this loan that's been broken into 2 parts. So remember, the interest on a loan formula is different to the interest on a investment formula. So the interest on a loan formula is PMT times by N minus PV minus FV. If you don't already have that from the lessons, I don't know what you were doing during the lessons, but you can get it now. So now let's find the interest in the first 7 years. Interest first 7. He made 84 payments of 1799.72, and they're taking away. Started off the debt at 275,000, but he got the debt down to, is it a he? Nathan? Yeah, well, let's hope so. 207,344.26. So that comes to, second quit, 84 times 1799.72 minus 275,000 minus 2, can't see the number, 207,344.26. So he paid 83,520.74 interest in the first 7 years, and then the interest in the last 13 years is going to be 156 payments of the larger repayment of $1972.24. Take away, he got his debt down to 207,344.26, and he wants to get it down to nothing. 156 times by 1972.24 minus 207,344.26, take nothing. That tells me $100,325.18. So total interest is going to be the 83,520.74 plus 100,325.18 equals, I've already got that number in there, so just add the 83,520.74. 183,845.92 total interest. First big question, that is for C2 done. Question 5, that is exercise 8C.4, if you had time to do the timeline exercises, but also this is just something you should have practiced by doing your DO, if you bother to do that. And so what is this? This is a refinance question, therefore it's exercise 8C.4 and also shown in your lessons. So Glenn takes out 250 grand home loan, 4.9%, compounding monthly repayments over 20 years as set. So you're told the repayments. We want to work out what the outstanding balance of the loan is after 5 years. So N, 5 years, 5 times 12 is 60. The interest rate we were told was 4.9. PV, what he borrowed was 250 grand. We were told payments were negative 1636.12. We want to find the outstanding balance, so we're solving for FV. Is something, PY is 12 because it's monthly, CY is also 12 because it's monthly. Calculator's on the wrong side again. Apps finance, TVM, 60, 4.9, 250 grand, negative 1636.12. That's already 12 and 12. Alpha solve, that tells me negative 208,263.35 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, 208,263.35 balance after 5 years. To answer the question with a question statement. After 5 years, Glenn transfers the remainder of the loan to a bank which charges 4.75, so a lower rate. He's refinancing. Calculate the new minimum monthly repayment. So he's been paying for 5 years already. He's got 15 to pay off, so 15 times 12, that's going to be 180 months. Interest rate is now lower, 4.75% per annum. PV is what he still owes, so he still owes $208,263.35. Because the rate has changed and he's paying off the rest of the loan and the rate has gone down, his payments are going to be smaller. So let's find that out by solving for PMT. I want to owe nothing at the end of the loan. PI is going to be 12. CY is going to be 12. So 180, 4.75, 208, 263.35. Owe nothing at the end. Alpha, enter. So his payments are going to go down marginally. Negative $1,619.94 to 2 decimal points. So therefore, $1,619.94 new monthly repayment. If Glenn's repayment reduces the new minimum repayment, how much interest will Glenn save by refinancing the loan? Okay, to work out the interest saved, we need to work out how much interest was paid on this loan. So I first 5 is going to be 60 payments of $1,636.12. Take away 250,000. Take 208,263.35 equals. Second quit 60 times by 1636.12. Take 250 grand. Take 208,263.35. So in the first 5 years, he paid $56,430.55 interest. In the last 15, he made 180 payments of $1,619.94. Take away 208,263.35. Take nothing. 180 times by 1619.94. Take 208,263.35. So in the last 15 years, he paid $83,325.85. So total I of refinanced loan is those two added together, what was that? Plus 56,430.55. So that comes to $139,756.40. So just like your DI, you're constantly comparing it to the default loan. So the default loan would have been I default. If he just did the straight up loan normal, 20 years would have been 240 payments of 1636.12, 1636.12. Take away the 250 grand down to nothing. Wrong side again. 240 times 1636.12. Take 250 grand. If he just did the loan as normal, it would have cost him $142,668.80 interest. So interest saved is going to be the default, what he should have paid if he didn't do anything, minus the interest he paid by refinancing. That's going to come to, I've already got that number there, so take away 139,756.4. $2,912.40 saved by refinancing. B2 done. B3, suppose Glenn decided to continue making his original repayment of $1,636.12. How much interest will he save in this case? So now it's going, what he did here was just paying the absolute minimum he needs to pay with this lower rate. But now we're saying, well, what's going to happen if he chooses to pay the larger payment, the $1,636.12 that he was happy with in the first place? So what that's going to do is make the time for the loan decrease. So we're solving for N, 4.75. PV was, he's still owed after the first 5 years, 208, 263.35. He's happy with paying 1636.12. I don't want to owe anything at the end of the loan. PY is 12, CY is 12. Solve for this. Apps, finance, TVM, 208, that's already there. The only thing we're changing is we're saying that he's happy paying more because that's what he was already doing at the start of the loan. So that's going to come to 177.42 to 2 decimal points. How much interest is he going to pay in this time? Interest is going to be 177.42 payments of 1636.12 minus 208,263.35. Take nothing. 177.42 times by the payments of 1636.12 minus 208,263.35. So 82,017.06 is the second chunk of interest he'll pay. So now interest new refinanced. We already know how much interest he paid in the OG first 5 years. That was 56,430.55. But now, because he's paying the larger repayments after the refinance, he's only paying $82,017.06. So that totals 56,430.55 plus 82,017.06, 138,447.61. So I save now. The interest saved by doing this technique is going to be $142,668.80. Take away $138,447.61. I've already got that number in there, so I'm going to make it negative. And then I'm going to add that to 142,668.80, which will be the same working out as taking, well, it's the same working out as this, but just being smart about my algebra. So that's going to be $421.19 saved making OG payments. Okay, that's that page done. So question 5A, B, 1, 2, and 3 done. Exercise 8A, meaning that this wasn't in the DI. You should have practiced the reducing balance loans on your timeline. Alexandra takes out a loan of $2,000. She'll repay the loan over 6 months, 8.12%, compounding fortnightly. Calculate the fortnightly repayments. N is going to be 6 months. So half a year, 0.5 of a year times by 26 fortnights in a year. That's going to be 13. 13 payments for half of a year, 6 months. The interest rate was 8.12% per annum PV. She took out a loan of $2,000. We're trying to work out what her repayments are. So PMT is what I'm solving for. What do I want to owe at the end of a loan? Nothing. Because it's fortnightly, 26, and CY also 26. Apps, finance, TVM, 13, 8.12, $2,000, 26.26, alpha, enter. That tells me negative $157.23 to 2DP. Therefore, $157.23 fortnightly. The total amount Alexandra must pay. So it's not asking how much interest she's going to pay. It's just asking how much she pays in total, which we can see on the TVM solver is 13 payments of $157.23. That comes to $20.43.99. Total to pay. What is the total interest charged on the loan? Well, remember, loan interest on a loan is equal to PMT times N minus PV minus FV. And you can see what this question is doing is stepping you through that because it's worked out the total, which is going to be PMT times N, and then you're going to take away the PV. Oh, I didn't mean to use the highlighter there. But I gave you the formula, so it's better to do that anyway. 13 payments of $157.23 minus $2,000. And she got the FV down to nothing. 13 times 157. Oh, that number was already there. Take $2,000 equals $43.99 interest charged. Exercise 8B, or the DI. So this is just a straight up home loan question, I think. Yeah, just straight up home loan question, just asking you what the debt is after 5 years. 350 grand, 30 years, 4.25% per annum, compounding monthly. What's the minimum monthly repayments? And also after we're finding the outstanding debt after 5 years. So you should practice this with your DI as the absolute minimum, but also exercise 8B if you're sort of a high achiever, so they're trying to do their best, okay? So N, minimum monthly repayments, 30 years, monthly, that's going to be 30 times 12 is going to be 360. The interest rate is going to be 4.25. You borrowed 350,000. What are your payments? That's what we're going to solve for. What do I want to owe the bank at the end? Nothing. PY is going to be 12 for monthly. CY is also going to be 12 for monthly. Apps, finance, TVM, 360, 4.25. So hopefully you can see by the speed that I'm working at, if you've been practicing, you shouldn't need to look at your cheat sheet. That's what's going to make you run out of time. Because I'm fully explaining this as I go. So that tells me negative 1721.79 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, $1721.79 payments per month. Find the outstanding debt after 5 years. So this TVM solver is telling you what happens after 30 years. How do we know what happens after 5? N is going to be 5 lots of 12. So what happens when N is 60? I is 4.25. PV is the same. We started off at 350 grand. And we decided that PMT was negative 1721.79. And I'm not going to try to do that same stuff up where I left the rounding off. I'm telling you that I'm rounding to 0.79. So I need to make sure that that's what the calculator says. I'm solving a FV for the outstanding debt. PY and CY are both 12. 60, negative 1721.79 alpha, enter. So that tells me I'm going to have $317,826.91 to 2 decimal points. 317,826.91, therefore $317,826.91 outstanding debt after 5 years. Question 8, that's exercise 8E. So this is an interest-only question. This is not in your DI. Borrowed 80 grand, interest-only payments on the loan for 8 years at a flat rate of 6.2% per annum. So an interest-only loan, that means you're only paying interest. Therefore, you need to somehow save up that principal of 80 grand and pay it off in full later. So we're suggesting that you set up a sinking fund, which is a savings account earning 5.7% per annum, compounding fortnightly, to save up the 80 grand at the end of the 8 years. Find the interest Therese must pay annually on the loan. So interest only means we're using SI equals PRT. The principal was 80 grand. The rate was 0.062 because 6.2%. Times by the time in years, which is 8. Second quit, 80 grand times by 0.062 times by 8. So she's going to owe $39,680 overall, but we want to know what she pays annually. So $39,680 divided by the 8 years for annually, divided by 8, that's going to be $49.60 interest annually. Calculate the total amount that will be repaid to the bank. Well, in total, she's going to pay $39,680 interest plus the 80 grand that she's saving up in principal from her sinking fund. Therefore, the bank is going to get $39,680 plus 80 grand. The bank is going to get $119,680 total to bank. Calculate the fortnightly deposits which must be made into the sinking fund. So N is going to be 8 years, fortnightly 26. Interest rate for the sinking fund is 5.7. Sinking funds start at nothing because what you're doing is putting small little payments in there to make sure that you have this principal, which you haven't been paying off because you paid interest only at the end of the time, which is 8 years in this case. FV, I want to have 80 grand ready to go to pay the bank because I've only been paying interest. PY fortnightly is 26. CY fortnightly is 26. So apps, finance, TVM solver, 8 times 26 is 208 payments. 5.7, start with nothing, end with 80 grand. 26, alpha, enter, negative 303.98 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, $303.98 fortnightly into sinking fund. Find the value of the sinking fund after 4 years. So this is what happens after the 8 years. What's the sinking fund at 4 years? N is going to be 4 times 26. I is 5.7. PV, start off with nothing. We're just working out what happens to this after half of the time. So FV, we don't know. PY is 26. CY is 26. What is 4 times 26? It is 104. make sure that I'm actually using the payments that I said I will use, 303.98, not unrounded. So alpha, enter. That tells me 35464.70 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, sinking fund is at $35,464.70 after 4 years. Explain why halfway through the loan there is less than half of the required money in the sinking fund. Well, because the sinking fund is compounding interest. It will grow faster after halfway because it increases by percentage amounts each time. Basically, just say how compounding interest works. That's why it's less than half, because after it's going to speed run to the end of the amount. Find the book value of the debt after 4 years. Book value is the intended debt. The principal minus current contents of sinking fund. Because you want to have 80 grand at the end, but currently you only have $35,464.70. So your book debt is going to be 80,000 minus 35464.7, $44,535.30 book debt after 4 years. That is the sinking fund question done. So once again, that is not practiced. Oh no, not done yet. Not done yet. I'm speed running that. That is not practiced in the DI. You need to practice this on the timeline. Final total cost of the loan to Therese. What is the total cost? She has to pay $39,680 in interest. $680 interest. Plus, she's making 208 payments. 208 payments of $303.98. $303.98. So that's going to cost her going to the sinking fund. That's the money going in the sinking fund. So 208 times 303.9, not bracket, bro, 98. $63,227.84. So in total, plus 39,680. The total cost it'll cost Therese is $102,907.84. Total cost. Account for the difference between the amounts in B and G. So in G, it was $102,907.84. In B, the bank got more. Why is that? Well, because the sinking fund, yeah, she's paying this. She's paying this 208 times. It's growing to 80,000, but it's growing faster than just the payments because this is a compounding interest account. So it earns interest. So your answer to that is there is a difference because the sinking fund is a compound interest account. So the payments made earn interest to grow to the intended FV future value. She puts less than 80,000 in the sinking fund to grow it to 80,000. Okay. So now we're finished with question 8, I think. Yep, it's blank there. Exercise 8D. Consider the following options for a loan of 150 grand over 15 years. 7.3% compounding monthly. Service fee of $10 per month. 7.4% compounding monthly, no fees or charges. 7.24% compounding monthly, $700 establishment fee, $5 monthly service fee. What's the comparison rate? So, first one, N, it's got a service fee of $10 per month. 15 times 12 is going to be 180. The interest rate it claims to be is 7.3% per annum. PV is going to be the straight 150,000 because there's no establishment fee. PMT, we need to work out what PMT is. I want to owe the bank nothing at the end. PY is 12. CY is also 12. Move this over to the other side. Apps, finance, TVM solver, 180. 7.3. I borrowed 150,000. I don't want to owe the bank anything at the end. I'm paying monthly. Apps, alpha enter, negative 1373.53. So we've worked out the payments, but there's an extra $10 service fee per month. So therefore, now N, so 180, we need to add the ongoing fees on top of that. We're going to solve for I now, which is the comparison rate. The PV was always 150 grand, but we're acknowledging that I'm paying $10 extra, so $1,383.53. So these payments are too high for the rate of 7.3%. So the comparison rate is going to tell us what the rate should be if I consider that. Negative 1383.53. Alpha enter. 7.42% 2DP. Therefore 7.42% per annum. Comparison rate there. This one was for A. Let's do B here. B has no fees or charges, so comparison is just 7.4% per annum. No maths needed. C. So we need to do the working. 180. Interest is 7.24 this time. 7.24. PV is going to be 150,000 plus the 700 establishment fee, so it's going to be 150, 700. We're working out the payments for this, including the extra 700. I don't want to owe the bank anything at the end. PY is 12, CY is 12. Where did I put the calculator? Here. 187.24, 150, 700, alpha, enter. So including the establishment fee, the payments are going to be 1374.84 to 2 decimal points. $1,374.84. So now we revert back 180. We're solving for the interest rate now. We go back to 150 grand. PMT is now going to be $5 monthly service fee. So it's going to be negative 1374 plus 9, 1379, 1374 plus 5, so 1379.84 per month. Owe the bank nothing. PY is 12. CY is also 12. Negative 1379.84 because it's $5 extra per month. Alpha, oh, almost forgot. Starting to fatigue now. I'm starting to forget things. 150 grand. Go back to the OG debt. Alpha, enter. So this tells me 7.37 to 2DP. 7.42% per annum comparison rate for this one. Therefore, 7.37% per annum comparison rate. For C, which option is the cheapest? Therefore, option... What's the lowest rate? 7.42, 7.4, 7.37. So option C is the cheapest as it has the lowest comparison rate. So I probably made up this question specifically to try to fool you by, well, there's a $700 establishment fee and $5 on top every month. But even with that, because this rate is so low, it's going to have the lowest comparison rate anyway. So option C is going to be the cheapest. That is a comparison rate question. You should have practiced with 8D. Question 10. So you should have practiced this with the DI or exercise 8C.5. Sarah borrows $195,000 to buy a unit. She's got a rate of 7.1% per annum, interest compounding monthly for 25 years. We know the payments are $1390.69. What's the outstanding debt after 4 years of minimum repayment? So N is going to be 4 lots of 12, which is 48. The interest rate was 7.1. I started my debt at $195,000. I was told my PMT was $1390.69, so negative because those payments are coming out of my pocket going to the bank. Because it's not the full 25 years, I'm still going to owe them something, the bank something, so we're solving for FV. PY is 12, CY is also 12. Move my calculator to the right place. 48, 7.1, 195 grand, negative 1390.69, alpha, enter. So I'm going to have $181,892.01 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, $181,892.01 remaining debt after 4 years. 4 years after Sarah purchased the unit, she gets $39,000. Damn. $39,000 from her parents and pays off her loan as a lump sum payment. How long will Sarah? So if it says how long, I'm finding N after I've made this lump sum. So N is to be solved. Interest rate is still 7.1. PV is going to be the remaining debt. But I paid off the lump sum, so take $39,000 from that. We'll work out the answer when I get my TVM solver up. PMT, doesn't say that they changed that, so PMT is negative 1390.69. I want to owe the bank nothing at the end. PY is 12, CY is 12. Wrong side. I always get the wrong side. And negative, not negative. It's a loan. Positive. 181,892.01. Take 39,000. That's 142,892.01. I want to owe the bank nothing at the end. Getting tired now. That tells me 158.72 months to TDP. Therefore, 158.7. It only says how long, so I'll leave it in months to repay. But I'll also work out in years just to flex the time that I've got. 158.72 divided by 12. 13.23 TDP years. How much interest will this save Sarah? All right, interest. What was the first 4 years? First 4 is going to be 48 payments of 1390.69. Take away, I started at 195,000 and I got it down to 181,892.01. So in the first 4 years, 48 times 1390.69 minus 195,000, take 181,892.01. I paid off 53,645.13 interest. Interest after lump sum was 158.72 payments of 1390.69. Take away. Now remember, after the lump sum, my starting debt was brought down to $142,892.01, and I got the debt down to 0 at the end. So that tells me I have to shift this over. 158.72 times 1390.69. Take 142,892.01. So in the remaining time after the lump sum, I paid $77,838.31. In interest, so total interest on the lump sum loan is going to be 53,645.13 plus 77,838.31. 77,838.31 plus 53,645.13. I'm going to pay $131,483.44 if I do the lump sum. But it's asking me how much interest would this save. So the interest on the default, if she didn't do the lump sum, would have been 25 years times by 12. So she would have paid the whole loan, 25 times 12. It would have been 300 payments of 1390.69. Take away the OG debt. She paid off $195,000 loan. Got it down to nothing. Second quit, 300 payments of 1390.69. Take away 195,000. So by default, if she didn't have the lump sum, she would have paid $222,207. So interest saved. Interest saved is going to be the default amount minus what she paid by having the what was it, $39,000 lump sum. That number, take away 131,483.44. She's going to save $90,723.56 saved by paying the lump sum. It's a lump sum question, exercise 8C.5, or practicing with your DI. We're almost there. 2 more questions. How long has it been? When did I start? I don't even know when I started. Exercise 8C.1, or DI, was how you should have practiced this. This larger repayments question. Borrowed 290 grand, 30 years, 4.04%, compounding fortnightly. What's the fortnightly repayment? N is going to be 30 years times 26. I think that's 780. We'll check after. The interest rate is 4.04. They borrowed 290,000. We're solving for PMT. PY is 26 and CY compounding. Oh no, I forgot the FV. Time wasted. FV equals 0. I don't want to owe the bank anything. PY is 26. CY is equal to 26. Apps, finance, TVM, 780, 4.04, 290,000, 2626, alpha enter, negative 641.79 to 2dp. So that should be the monthly repayments, I believe. Therefore, 641.79, not monthly, fortnightly. Fortnightly. The couple aims to pay an additional $100 each fortnight, assuming they're able to do this. How long will it actually take to repay the loan? So how long? We're finding N. Star on N, the interest rate is 4.04. PV is 290 grand. PMT now is going to be negative 741.79 because it's $100 more. They're trying to speed run as best they can. I don't want to owe the bank anything at the end. PY is 26. CY is 26. Was it? No. So negative 741.79. Alpha enter. N is going to be 602.29 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, 602.29 fortnights to pay off. Therefore, 602.29 divided by 26, 23.17 years. So 2 decimal points. How much will this strategy save them in interest? Well, interest, extra 100 is going to be 602.29 payments of $741.79. Take away 290,000. Take nothing. Equals 602.29 times 741.79. Take 290,000. Take nothing. That would pay $156,772.70 to 2 decimal points. If they do this speed running of paying $100 extra per fortnight, the interest default would be 780 payments of $641.79. Take away the 290,000. Take nothing. Equals 780. Take 641.79. Take 290,000. $210, $596.20. Therefore, interest saved is going to be that number, $210,596.20 minus 156,772.70. 156,772.70. $53,823.50 saved by paying $100 more per fortnight. Almost done, I think. 8C.1 DI, 8C.6 or DI. Yep, that's the last question. Question 12. So I think the real test is 8 questions. So this last one, I believe, is a offset question. Hardest calculation that you need to do in this whole topic. You should have practiced that in your DI. Multiple variations, and also, if you have time, exercise 8C.6 and 8C.7. Sorry, I forgot that. 8C.7 plus 8C.7, the chapter I wrote for you. Whether you did that or not, that's your concern. 500 grand loan, 5%. So this is a default loan for 30 years. The default 2025 loan that we've been hammering. Find the amount of interest paid on the loan as arranged. To do that, we need to know what the payments are. So 30 years, 30 times 12 is going to be 360. Interest rate is 5. PV is 500,000. Solve for PMT. FV, I don't want to owe the bank anything. PY equals 12. CY equals 12. Apps Finance TVM Solver 360, 500,000, 12 and 12. Alpha, enter. Negative $2,684.11 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, interest equals 360 times 2684.11. Take away 500,000, take nothing, equals 360 times 2684.11. Take 500,000. 466,279.60 interest paid by default if I don't do anything. What's the balance of the loan after 5 years? N is going to be 5 times 12, which is 60. Interest rate is 5. PV is 500,000. We already decided the PMT was 2684.11. Because I've only paid for 5 years, FV is not going to be 0. PY is 12. CY is 12. Apps Finance TVM 60. Negative 2684.11. Alpha, enter. That tells me I have $459,143.53 to 2 decimal points. Therefore, 459,143.53. Remaining debt after 5 years. Julianne has 10,000 in a savings account she receives from selling her car, 10 grand. If after 5 years of making the minimum monthly repayments, Julianne put her 10 grand into an offset account for 3 years, how much interest would she pay for that 3-year offset period? So, N, 3 years times 12. She's going to have an offset for 36 months. The interest rate is 5, PV. She's been paying normally for 5 years, so she got her debt down to 459,143.53. but she's offsetting it by 10,000. So it's going to be 4,449,143.53. PMT was negative 2684.11. FV, we don't know what her debt's going to get down to after 3 years, so that's what we're working out, so that we can work out how much interest she paid in that time. So 36 449,143.53. Alpha enter, that tells me that she gets her down to 417,649.52 to 2 decimal points. How much interest would she pay? So interest, 3 years offset is going to be 36 payments of 2684.11. Take away the starting debt of 449,143.53, got it down to 417,649.52. 36 times 2684.11, take away 449,143.53, take 417,649.52, $65,133.95 interest in offset, 3 years. If Julianne was to take the 10,000 out of the offset account after the 3-year offset period, how much interest would Julianne save over the life of the loan compared to having no offset at all? Okay, so we need to work out what happens in the remainder of the time after the offset. So we'll work out how long the rest of the loan takes to pay. Interest is 5. PV is, she got the debt down to 417,649.52, but she's withdrawn her offset, so this grows by 10,000. So it's going to be 427,649.52. PMT remains at the negative 2684.11. I don't want to owe the bank anything at the end. PY is 12. CY is also 12. Ambulance going off. Apps, finance, TVM. 427,649.52. Owe the bank nothing. How long is that going to take? 262.20 to 2 decimal points. So interest after offset is going to be 262.2 payments of 2684.11. Take away 427,649.52 minus nothing. 262.2 times by 2684.11. Take away 427,649.52. He's going to pay 276,124.12 interest after the offset's been taken out. So total interest with 3-year offset is going to be, we know how much interest was during the offset. We don't know how much interest was paid in the first 5 years, so we need to work that out. I'll do it in red. Interest 5 years is going to be 60 payments, 2684.11. Take away 500,000. Take 459,143.53 equals 60 payments, 2684.11. Take away 500,000 take 459,143.53, $120,190.13 interest in the first 5 years. So now we can total them up. First 5 years, 120, 193. .13 plus the interest during the offset, which was 65,133.95, plus the interest after the offset, 276,124.12. That number's already there, plus 65,133.95, plus 276,124.12. $461,448.20 interest with 3-year, how much was it? 10 grand offset after 5 years. We want to work out how much interest was saved. Well, the OG, the default interest saved, interest paid is 466,279.60. So I saved is going to be just forgot that number. 466,279, is it? Yep. Minus $461,448.20. I've already got that number in there. Make it negative. Add it to 466,279.6. You're going to save $4,831.40. Saved by having, put an underline there, 10,000 offset for 3 years after 5 years. That is that, I believe. Yep, no more. I haven't been timing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording.